Right, we are live. This one is a bit of a special live stream. This is your narcissistic relationship holding you back from accelerating your life purpose? This one is pretty big. There'll be a lot of revelations in this one. This is where you've kind of left your ex, or maybe you're still in a relationship that you know and feel like is really holding you back from not just fulfilling or living or accelerating your life purpose, but even starting your life purpose, right? This is something that I've worked with many clients on, and this is something that when these people walk away from their narcissistic relationship, whether it's an ex-partner or a career or someone else, a family member or something, I have seen it time and time again. They literally fly in their career and they find someone who is completely in alignment with their life purpose, with their heart-centered calling, right? So this is a really big topic that I'm really excited to discuss with you guys today. So let me go on and share this live stream as always, and then I shall be super present with us. So when you're joining live, let me know you're here. Let me know if this is your first time to my live stream, so welcome if it is, and comment below and let me know where you're from around the world. It would be lovely to see where you are. And okay, so let me just concentrate and share this whilst I wait for you to let me know where you're from around the world, and let me know if you are in a relationship that you're not sure of, or you can just give me some love hearts if you don't want to comment about that, because I know it is a little bit of a private kind of conversation as well, right? So I know you'll be listening in intently. Okay, so let's just leave that for a second on here. I'm going to share this here. It's easy to share it on my phone for some reason. Okay, and I need to bring this one up for the comments. Delaware. Where's Delaware? Curious what country that's in. Okay, one more share and I shall be there. You're a poet and you don't know it. Oh, that rhymes. How about that? Okay. Perfect. It is live. Well, we are live. Of course we're live. I've shared it. Okay. So I don't want it to do a live stream outside, but it's like about to storm here and rain for the next week again. So yes. Okay. So I've got my laptop down here. That's why I'm checking the comments down here. So hello, beautiful people from around the world. Awesome. And Connecticut. Beautiful. North Wales in the UK, yes. Okay, all right, this is awesome. So Dee says from the York Peninsula, beautiful. Hello, fellow Australian. Okay. So Ricky says, narc X won't get off my mind this past week. It's driving me bonkers. Okay, awesome. We're going to talk about this. So have you had any contact with them? I'm curious, or it's just like, it's on your mind, right? And then Kylie says, yes, definitely. He keeps trying to offer to help me out at the moment, but I keep telling him no thanks. Yes, okay, this is awesome. Okay, yes, no, I think they're saying no contact there. And from the sunny coast, hinterland. Awesome, fellow sunny coast hinterland. Is that what we say, hinterlander? That's funny. All right. So let's go over these few things. So I'm going to kind of like run through factors that you may be experiencing or going through. And if at any time you've got questions, pop them in, okay, as I'm talking, or if you're resonating with what I'm saying, give me some love hearts or comment like, yes, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, or just like, Hannah, this is not making sense at all. Let me know, right? And as I go through, as you know, I get in my flows and I'll come back and I'll check the comments soon. So yes, 3 of my 4 sisters. Yeah, so this is like relational to family members or an ex-partner or a friendship or somebody at work or somebody in your career, which I know they're kind of the same, but if you're in business, ultimately a narcissistic relation can appear in any sort of any area of your life, basically. Yeah. So when I'm sort of talking about like, I'm kind of basing this conversation around an ex-partner, but you can change the wording, or you can relate it to the relationship, because they're pretty much the same when we're talking about these traits. Okay. So I'm going to go through different aspects. I'm going to go through the why are they even, why do they happen? Yeah, and how to heal from them as well. So yeah, this is a people from Australia here. Welcome. All right. Now, I'm going to give you lots of solutions, okay? And one of them is definitely Unhook Me. So if you've been following me for a little bit, we ran Unhook Me as a live 3-day workshop at the end of January. If you've been following me for a while, you would have seen my own process around, Unhook Me is a process that I take my clients through. And it is a 3-day workshop. So you basically can walk yourself through the process. The link is in the comments, so I'll pop it in the comments now, and then also it's at the top of this live stream. So everything that I refer to, of course, you are able to, heal from, okay? And with Unhook Me, you can literally walk yourself through it. It's a powerful 3-day mini container, and you can join the Facebook group. There's a lot of us that, went through it at the end of January, and also are still feeling the effects from it. It can be quite intense, yeah? However, Unhook Me is literally the energetic and emotional, mental and physical process that you can walk through to be able to leave that relationship. It is literally like set yourself free from destructive relationships, okay? So I'm just gonna post this in here anyway, so you've got access to that right away. And okay, I'm just going to pin that to the top so you've got it there. So Angie says, the question to stay or leave this relationship. This is like the biggest question that I get asked over and over again. Now, the content that I'm going to run through here with you today is really going to help you to kind of decide that question, right? And it's not an easy question, is it? It's like a life-changing, life-directional changing question, isn't it? And that's why it's so big. Yeah, it is so big, and it pulls at our heartstrings, and we're like, what do we do? Yeah. Now I'm curious, right? I did use the word your narcissistic ex, okay? So if you're here on this live stream, you probably understand what that label is. Now, if you know me, I really don't like using labels. I don't like to put a layer and a web on people, because it traps them there, okay? However, for understanding of what we're talking about, that label helps us to go, that is what we're experiencing, right? What about family members? Yeah, same process, okay? Same process here. And, and the reason I say why is because sometimes we need to leave our narcissistic partner and never have contact with them again. Now, that's a little bit tricky if we have children with them, or that's a little bit tricky if we work in the same environment with them. That's also a little bit tricky if they're our family members, right? And so what I'm going to share with you here, and also what we work through in Unhook Me, yeah, is how do we actually be in an environment with such a person and not get pulled into it? How do we not be affected by it, okay? So we're going to cover these sorts of things, okay? So with a narcissistic person, right, there's a couple of little different factors here, because it's in the sense of do you feel drained in their presence? Do you feel like you just can't say anything right? Do you eventually shut down your voice because you're like, well, if I say anything, good or bad, I just get shut down, or I am totally ignored about what I just said, or, You've just learned to not say anything because, well, I just get shut down. So why would I say anything? Or it can go the opposite, that you get into like full-blown arguments, right? So do you guys usually feel that? But then things will happen and it'll be good again. And maybe you've had some space and then it's all good again. And you're like, oh, it's fine now. And they'll be like adorning you with gifts or love or attention, and it'll be amazing, and all the things that you've been after. And even the sex is incredible as well, right? If you're in an intimate relationship. And then it's all good. But then something will happen and it'll spiral back around. Now, some people call this the domestic violence cycle. Some people, call this all those things. Like I said, the narcissistic label, the domestic violence cycle, these things are real. Okay, and they're an awesome label to be able to understand what we're dealing with, so that we as sensitive empaths are able to then put boundaries in place and understand when we've crossed those boundaries, and understand when we're kind of going back and why we're going back, and it's tricky, yeah? So when we kind of get dragged back into that cycle, sometimes we get cut off and ignored, or there's a breakup and then we're like, and it's like, it's peaceful for a bit. If you've read my article that I posted yesterday and if you haven't read it, comment below and I can send you the link to that, or send me a message and I can send you the link to that. This is what happens when we cut toxic, unhealthy relationships from our life, yeah? We're like, okay, cool, done. Like, I'm not going through this cycle again. It's draining me. It's crippling me. Like, who feels crippled in those instances? Like, you can't move, like you're paralyzed, like the energy is that kind of thick or dense, or just, you can't work, you can't think, you can't, it's like everything gets triggered, right? And especially when we get cut off. Who's ever been cut off from a narcissist and it feels like death? Like you literally can't think, you kind of go into this brain fog, you just, you've got all this work to do, you've got to function in life and you just can't, you can't do anything until you sort this out. Like you can't, it's just like, I just have to sort this out because I can't think about anything else, right? Who's been in that position before? Yeah. Do you cry easily, or do you just can't cry because you're so numb? Yeah. Do you drop your hobbies and put them first, right? Because you just need to get back in it, and it's like everything comes to a halt. Yeah. It's really hard at times. Yeah, walking on eggshells, yes. Like, okay, if I just make sure everything's okay, and then this is gonna be good again. Yeah, maybe it'll be fine again at some point, right? Now, I really want to point out that no relationship is perfect. Yeah, I really want to point out that no relationship is perfect, and I know you guys know that. That's why you keep trying. That is why you keep giving in the hope that it's going to shift, right? Everybody knows that there's no perfect relationship or person, yeah? Everybody knows that. However, the piece here is that as I always say, any relationship can go unhealthy, but it takes two conscious, willing people to make the relationship healthy again, yeah? Where you're not walking on eggshells, where you work through things together, where you don't cut each other off in abandonment and pull on each other's triggers to create connection again, right? That is possible. And I know you all know that. That's why you keep trying, yeah? Let me check these comments and, okay. So, okay, let me just go here. Yes, the cycle. My ex-husband is keeping our daughter from me. Yes, that's really hard. Okay, the cycle. Kylie says I keep my mouth closed because I want him to go away again. He disappeared for 2 years and now he's back. Yes, that happens too. Hi, Leanne. So Nicola says, yes, I had this with both my ex-husbands and eldest son. Also, I shut down, isolate myself. Yeah, we do that, right? And I feel there's such an unconscious kind of patterning that happens there. Like we just kind of go into freeze mode and we don't want to shine and we don't want to upset anything. And, you know, it's like we're waiting for the next explosion in a way, right? And that's like, as you said, walking on eggshells. Yeah, it's that, you know, you're walking on eggshells. And he says, yes, my ex-husband. Yes, Leanne says, often I would forget the trauma I went through and go back. I know how many of us have done that, right? And it's just like, oh my God, what am I doing here again? So full on. And he says, my ex-husband put fear in me about our son. Yeah, so like, and the thing is we get like, because we love them, ultimately we do, right? Like, even though there's all this bad stuff here, right? Who also experiences the fact that they fully love them. Like, we do love them. Whether it's a family member, whether it's an ex-partner, whether it's a partner, whether it's a child, we innately love them. Yeah? Brittany says, for sure, yes. Yeah, been there, 3 years single and healing. Yes. Yeah. Brittany says it's such a crazy perpetual cycle. Yes. And the isolation. Yeah. We shut down, right? Yeah. Leanne says, yep. Still love them. Hi, Joy. Lovely for you to join us here. And the piece here, right, is that we know that it's unhealthy. We know that we shut down. We know that we walk on eggshells. We know that it's hard. We know that it's not right the way we're being treated. But we love them so much that we cannot walk away. Maybe we do, and then we go back. And even if we've been single for 3 years or more, sometimes if we're single, like, you know, after such a string of relationships, yeah, because sometimes we'll be in one for like ages. Otherwise, every relationship we've experienced is this same patterning, right? And we will like love them, even though there's all the stuff. And as you said, Leanne, often I would forget the trauma I went through when I go back. And we do, right? What's worse on top of this is that there is labels out there like narcissist, like the domestic violence cycle. And ultimately, that stuff is real. Like, that is real. Like, people die in that instance at pieces, right? Like, and inherently, we know that at our core too. Like, we know that. And that's almost what makes it 10 times worse, because we love them so much. And we go back in hope. We go back time and time again, giving them chances. Maybe if I just do this a little bit differently. Or here's the other here's the other piece, the scenario. We leave. We do all this inner work because we are those sort of people, right? And we do all this inner work. And we're like, this childhood trauma, or that's why. Or, okay, cool. It was me. Oh my gosh. I see that in me. I've worked on myself. Oh my gosh, how did I muck that up? Okay, and we go back in hope because we're like, it was me. I understand my patterning and my piece in the story. And okay, cool. Now I'm clear on that. We're good, right? And so that's why you go back, let alone the fact that you love them. You're like, cool, right? Because you inherently know that relationships take work. And you also inherently know that relationships can go healthy again. Yeah? And so you try again because you've done all this work and you're like, oh my God, like it was me. Oh my God. Okay, cool. Let's have a great time. And then it starts happening again. And you're like, whoa, hang on a sec. Like, you're just like, and there gets a period of time, right? It comes into a period of time where you've gone through this cycle enough, right? And there comes a period of time that you like, you know, you at the start, you kind of like come out of it and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened again. And then you do all this work and then you go back. You do that several times. It gets to a point where you come into that space again and you're like, whoa, hang on a second. That's actually not my stuff. And you kind of reach this level of personal development in yourself, or whatever you want to call it, level of consciousness, or you've done enough inner work, or whatever it is. There's a point in your spiritual evolution. There's a point in your conscious awareness and development. There's a point in what I call growing up, maturing. Okay, and this is not a degrading comment against the other person, okay? I'm talking about you here. You reach a point where you come into a place and you're like, it's like you're catching it all real time. You're catching it all consciously rather than getting pulled into it. You're actually staying connected. You're staying conscious, and you're like, that was not me. And you feel, you know that they've been really triggered and they just threw it back on you. And you're like, whoa, hang on a second. Sometimes you might still get a little bit confused and you're like, and you kind of go into it, but it gets to this point where you're like, hang on a sec, that was actually like, you just caught all of that and you were so conscious of everything, and you're like, man, like that is your trigger, that is your stuff, and you really need to work on that, whether you say that to them or not. You grow in such a place where you're like, hang on a sec, like that is not me. And so then you reach a point where you're like, how can I stay here? Because maybe you have some sort of conscious communication with that person and go like, hey, like that wasn't me, and whatever you're talking about, right? And then they might be like, rah, 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 and you know, depending on what sort of person they are, they might just be so unconscious to it still. And you're then here with all this awareness, just going, oh my God, what do I do now, right? Now, there are some people who stay in those relationships and can fully accept that this person, that's who they are. They love them. They also deal with all the crap that gets flung at them. They're okay being in a somewhat unconscious relationship. Remember, I don't like using labels, but just for the sake of explaining things, they're conscious and they're in an unconscious relationship, and that's okay for them, okay? And to be honest, I have tried that. To be honest, I did so much work because I saw people around me living like that. I'm like, see, it can be done. But in my heart and soul, after trying it, I was like, no, that's not for me. That is not what I want. I actually do want a conscious partnership. I do want someone who is awake. I do want that, right? And going through that, I came to that conclusion. I was like, actually, no, right? So then it comes into a point of like, wow, you see all this for what it is. And it's, again, you're not blaming the person, you're not doing all that, but it comes to that point where you're like, I can't be in this relationship anymore. And then almost the real work starts in a way. Do you know what the number one, I'll check the comments in a moment. Do you know what the number one key reason is that you cannot leave your narcissistic relationship? Do you know what that is? Whether you're still, because sometimes, and let me clarify what I mean about leaving your narcissistic relationship, because you can be single for 3 years and not be in another relationship and not have any contact with them, but you are still in relationship with them here. You're still kind of constantly thinking about them, or it goes away for a time and then it's all you're going to think about again. And, you know, and then you kind of go through, there's nothing there. And then they're just thinking about them all the time again. Like that perpetual cycle, you might as well still be in relationship with them, right? Let me know if you know what the number one reason is why you cannot leave your narcissistic relationship. While I wait for the comments to come through on that, I'm going to just check these comments because I know you were awesomely commenting all these amazing things and I want to respond to them. Okay. Yes. So yes, the isolation, and we love them so much. Exactly, right? So Kylie says, I was more isolated and alone while I was with him. Yeah, and this is what happens. It's like we get into this like prison, this energetic prison, right? Like, it's huge, yeah? And we're just like, oh my God, like, and we don't know how to escape that either. We're just like paralyzed in this energetic isolation prison. It's really full on, hey? And I'll explain why that happens too, why that feeling is there. It's really like, yeah, it's a big eye opener, that one. Pardon the pun, because the eye opener. Third eye, all about relationships. Third eye, every relationship ever. Okay, so now it's just me and the kids and I don't feel alone. Yeah, let me just, okay, actually I'm gonna answer these questions as I'll speak to these comments as we go, because there's a lot here. This is really important. So the reason why we feel more isolated and alone when we're in relationship with them. Now this can be pretty deep, so I'm going to keep it pretty like short here. I did a live stream on crown chakra consciousness, and it's all about why we feel so drained around certain people. So in short, if you'd like to watch the full live stream of that, just send me a message and I can send it to you, okay? Why we feel so isolated and alone and feel like this energetic prison, and we don't want to move and we don't shine our light and we don't do all these things. The reason why is because, I mean, there's so many reasons, but the number one core reason is that they, I want to say, suck energy from you, okay? They connect to source through you. Who's been in a narcissistic relationship? Let's just keep with that label for a minute. And they have said, no, you're like my kryptonite. You make me weak. You make me like fall to my knees. You're like my energy source. You give me energy. I feel so much better around you. Oh my God, like what? I just feel better around you. I just have to be with you. Like who's had those comments, right? The reason is because usually like we're pretty good. And as you said there, Kylie, like I was more isolated alone when I was with him. Now it's just me and the kids. I don't feel that, right? And the reason why is because we're living our life. We're connected to source. We do our meditations. We just do our normal self-care. Like we just live because we're like, you know, there. And then what happens is, so they feel better around you. We are their kryptonite. They feel like we give them energy because energetically they're connecting to source through us. So we might have a really strong connection. We might be those people who change the energy in a room, right? When we walk into it. And those sorts of people don't know how to connect to source. They don't know how to connect to spirit, to sustain themselves, to take care of themselves, okay? Usually we're the ones taking care of them. Yeah, it's a bit of a, like, yeah, we do. Oh, bit of a people pleaser thing there, like a mothering thing, gonna take care of you. They don't know how to do that for themselves. So what happens is that they connect to source through us. So if you can imagine, like, you know how they say like there's two people and there's an energy cord that goes through, that connects you, right? So what happens in that relationship, and especially being sexually intimate with them, they'll connect to source through you. That's why you feel drained around them. Why? Because they've tapped into your source and you've somehow decided that you need to feed them. You need to take care of them. You need to make sure that they're okay. You need to make them feel better. It's okay, you know, like whatever, right? But ultimately we still love them too, right? I'm going to get to where the core of why and where that comes from and how to heal it, okay? By the way, so all the healing tools are in Unhook Me. Yeah, it's the 3-day workshop. The link is it's pinned to the top of these comments. You can find it in the title of this live stream. Send me a message if you can't see it. It's a 3-day workshop that has profound results because we energetically unhook, we physically unhook, we mentally unhook, we emotionally unhook. We go through all of those processes over 3 days. It's not... it's very deep. I want to say you want to be prepared for it, and ultimately it won't call you if you're not ready. So yeah, Unhook Me is there. So when they feed through us, that's where we feel isolated, because if you can imagine someone else's energy coming through you and kind of, and I'm going here because we're connecting through to source, through crown chakra, and they come up through, like through the center of your being, also through your womb, yeah, through your womb, not just with a child, but our womb, we're having intimate sex with somebody, right? The womb is the power source and the feed of creation. The womb is what connects us back to generation. Like it's the portal of source, right? Our umbilical cord goes into our, it's that perpetual cycle. We do a lot of generational womb clearing in Unhook Me as well for this very reason. So kind of like connecting through crown, connecting through your body, right? And that's why we feel so isolated and alone and kind of frozen and crippled and paralyzed, because it's like they've taken over that connection that we usually have, right? That's why we don't want to shine our light, because they've taken our light. They're like connecting into the light through us rather than them having their own connection. So when you look at a healthy couple, you'll find that they both really take care of themselves. They're both conscious of their own connection. They're both in that healthy state themselves. They're not enmeshed, right? So that is a big reason why you feel more alone, yeah? So, okay, let me just check these comments here. So Gemma says, I was set free when I cut my cord. Such a beautiful freeing moment after grieving. Yes, this is the piece, right? Why is it that we cannot let go of our narcissistic ex? What is that reason? Yeah? That reason, I know you put comments in here. So Joy says, I think because we haven't healed our past trauma, and that's why we keep going back to the toxicity, because we know, it's all we know, and it's comfort. Yes, definitely. Brittany says lack of self-worth. Definitely that too. Kylie says addiction. It's like a drug. Definitely that too. So all the things. Leah says soul ties. That too. And so, yep. So I'll read that one in a second. So interesting to feel more connected when it's just the children and I. Yeah, it's interesting, right? And so just a little side note, if you want a healthy relationship, you need to maintain, doesn't matter who it's with, you need to maintain that connection when you enter into any new relationship. Because if you don't know how to maintain your connection when you enter into a new relationship of any sort, you're just going to repeat that cycle and pattern. Okay, a lot of empaths, a lot of, codependents, whatever label you want to put on it, simply don't know how to maintain that connection and how to also stabilize so that no one can come in and pull that from you too. Okay, so we go into that deeply and Unhook Me. Yeah. Okay, so yes, it's the joy, right? Yes, perfect, Sindrina. I think that's how I pronounce your name. So awesome to hear. It's exactly what you're needing to hear. So the number one reason why you cannot leave your narcissistic relationship, and it's definitely all of those pieces, right? All of those pieces that you mentioned definitely come into it. They're like threads that we need to kind of check and clear. Now, I just want to kind of point out from if you all were my clients, for example, and I asked you that question and you came back and said that, I would be like, yeah, that would be the most kind of pressing thing, would be your number one. So like I said, all those things are like the list we need to work on, for example, right? And they're kind of in an order, right, in a way. But what you have mentioned there would be the number one thing I would start working on for yourself, right? So for example, Brittany said, you said lack of self-worth, okay? That would be your number one focus, where you'd need to be working on kind of straight away sort of thing as your main focus to strengthen yourself, to then work on the rest and also leave the relationship fully in a way. Kylie, you said addiction, so it'd be working on the addictive tendencies of that relationship. Do you know what I mean? So that would be your kind of focus. Leah, you said soul ties, so that would be your first focus to work through. Again, in Unhook Me, we actually do like the soul retrieval. We do the interdimensional past life clearing and activating, which is just, it's massive. I probably shouldn't have put it in, but it was channeled live, and it was so profound to work on the interdimensional realm, to be clearing through that. Like, that integration was huge in itself. I'm like, man, that should be on its own in a way. It was really, really big, Unhook Me, but very, very powerful. So we do the soul retrieval, we do the soul tie, that releasing the vows that we've had with past lives and all of that, because it's all of those factors. However, the number one piece, okay, now someone actually did say it here. Gemma says, I was set free when I cut my cord. Such a beautiful, freeing moment. But then you said, after grieving. Grief is the number one thing that pulls us back time and time again. Now I want to give you, it's like almost like a double bind lock here, okay? Grief is the number one thing. Because usually when we come out of a narcissistic relationship, everyone around you is like, it's bad. And then you Google all these things and it's like, it's bad, you need to leave them. And it's blah, 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 blah. Like everything is like, oh my God. So it's like all this shame and I've done something wrong. And oh my God, there must be something wrong with me because I'm attracted to this person. And we don't want to admit that. We actually love them because, oh my God, it's like, it's such a bad situation. And I just, oh my God, like people would think, you know, like all this shame comes in, right? And so number one, we don't usually let ourselves grieve to the depths that we need to about the fact, and it's usually not about the fact that how bad it's been, because usually while we're in the relationship, well, we're usually grieving about all that, right? But when we decide to leave the relationship or we're planning to, the real grief comes in with how much you love them. The reason you cannot leave your narcissistic relationship is because you were told that it's not okay to love them. You were told that it was bad that you love them. Like maybe not those exact words, but that's the kind of feeling you get from all the texts and everything out there, that it's bad to love a narcissistic person. What the F are you doing with them? Because they are so bad for you. Oh my God, can't you see it? And you're like, but I've never felt what I feel with them. You don't understand, right? We love them so much. And if you are not allowing yourself to grieve that love, you will never be able to let go. So yes, there's all those factors that we just talked about. They are important. But number one is the grief. Of course, you might be still grieving from the horror and stuff that, like, definitely, it's not saying that's over in a way. Usually it's just we've already done a chunk of that. But it's actually grieving the love that you have for them. The love that you actually felt together when it was good. Because usually 99% of the time I find with my clients working on this stuff is that it's the most love that they've ever felt in any relationship ever. Yeah? That's usually the biggest core piece of it. So, all right, just let me check these comments here. I know we need to remember to love ourselves. Now that I've reconnected with myself, I don't require outside love. Exactly. And that's when we attract the healthy love. Yeah? When we can really have that. Now, like I said, like any relationship can go unhealthy, but any relationship together working on it can become healthy again. Yeah? Like it's a fact. Right? But both those people must be willing to work on it together. Any good relationship you see out there, if you ask them, they will guarantee tell you that there's hard times. Like every relationship has that, right? But it's how they work through it together and communicate in respectful ways that is the difference, right? Lovely to have you here, Josephine, and those who have been joining and jumping on while I've been talking. So Gemma says, yes, and the fantasy that I was in, not my reality. Yes, that too. We're also grieving the hopes and dreams that never happened with them, that we thought were going to happen with them. The fantasy, if you may, yeah, some people call it fantasy bond, etc. Of course, the trauma bond, all these labels. And like I said, they're all really important to deal with and to like look at, and awesome for explanatory understanding for us to go, whoa, actually, and we see the reality, but it's so important to grieve that reality, right? Like the amount of clients that I've worked with where they have dropped into deep grief because I have given them permission that you actually love that person. It's like they've never actually had permission from anyone, and it's not about giving people permission, but there's something that happens when they are acknowledged that they actually love that person, even though it's been torturous and death many times over, sometimes actual death, which is, you know, a whole nother ball game. But the most powerful shifts that I've had with clients, that they've come from very violent relationships. And this is the difference between what I think a counselor and a healer works with, is the reality that the fact that they love that person, even if they're getting beaten up by them. Now, I don't recommend that people stay in that environment. Hell no, definitely not. Okay, and usually the women that I work with have left that relationship and they're healing from it, right? Of course, we can still work on getting out of situations, but they can't let go, or they're going through the trauma over and over again, or something triggers them and they go back in because they haven't actually grieved, not just the trauma and the horror and the reality and the shame and all of that, but also the fact that they actually loved them to some extent. And they've never been allowed or acknowledged in that. And that's okay. Why? Because they're just human. They are just human. I do not recommend going back to a violent relationship. I do not recommend having contact with such either, right? Definitely not all that. Domestic violence is real and people die from it every day. Like, I'm very conscious of that. However, when you have made the cut and you have walked away from it and you are healing from it, if you have not grieved the fact that it's okay to feel that love for them, you won't be able to let go. Yeah, it is so important. Now, I know that this topic was like, is it holding you back from the fulfillment and acceleration of your life purpose, right? Now, the thing that I will talk about here in a moment is just we're going to dive into that, okay? I just wanted to acknowledge that because I'm like, there's a point here, yeah? Okay, so just checking the rest of these comments. So Kylie says, yes, communication and respect. Yeah, it's a thing, right? It's a thing. The lost in their dream. Not sure which bit you're talking about there, Gemma. I know I was talking about lots of different things. All right, let me just check these comments back here. Okay. All right. So Leah says, my children's father is one and my parents is the other. Yeah. There was a lot of abuse in my marriage, being unhealed and not in alignment. Yeah, it's huge. Generational dysfunctional patterns were trying to repeat themselves. Thanks goodness I got away when I did. Yeah, was definitely held back in my work and my growth. Yeah, honestly, it does hold you back, you know, and this is the thing. Is it holding you back? Yeah, it is. And like I said, all those factors that we went through are so important to delve into, and some of them can be quite complex and quite deep. We do go through that in Unhook Me, right? And this is obviously what I work with my clients with as well. When, you know, you're stuck in this cycle, right? And this is what I was sharing, I think, the other day on the live stream that started this live stream, was the fact that, does it fulfill you? Does it lift you up and make you feel amazing? Because if it doesn't, and you're continually traumatized and you're continually paralyzed, and even if you're not with them and you've left them and you're still in that space, yeah, it is a distraction to your life purpose. It is going to pull you away. And until you really heal from that, you're not really going to be in the complete amazing fulfillment of your life purpose. That is definite to an extent. Doesn't mean that you can't start working on it, because it's almost like working on your life purpose is the antidote to that. Yeah. So it's so important to not think, oh, I need to be perfect and healed before I start. No, it actually supports you and lifts you up. Yeah. It's actually the support you've been looking for, by the way. So yes, and so important to also look at that generational lineage. Yeah. And that is why we look at the generational lineage and go through the clearing and the activating through Unhook Me, because that piece is so important, and we repeat patterns that our family has gone through. So if you're in a situation, and there's two kind of timelines here, you look at when your mother or father was the age you are now, what were they going through? Yeah, so important. And then also, if you have children, those ages that your children reach, what were you going through when you were their age? Yeah, so you can kind of look at clearing those generational bits as a starting point. In Unhook Me, we also do the past life and the interdimensional past life, because we want to make sure that that is completely cleared into the others, because it's not just this lifetime and this bloodline that you're dealing with. You've had many before. Yeah. So Unhook Me, the link is pinned to the top here, and it's also in the title of this live stream. If you can't find it, please send me a message and I can send you the link there. But that is where we go through that, and Unhook Me is super powerful. It's a deep dive, but it's super powerful and actually energetically freeing you, spiritually freeing you from destructive relationships, the physical stuff, the emotional stuff, the mental stuff. Like, we go deep in all of that, yeah? Okay, so Joy says, maybe if we step away and punish them, when we go back, they will change. Nope, it gets worse every time, yeah. It's like there's nothing that we can do. Yeah, nothing that we can do fixes it or changes them. It's big, right? And we learn that hard way usually, and then we're just like, oh my God. So Brittany says, yes, totally relate. Leanne's like, yep, every time I found another way to make it work, I'd give it another shot. Exactly, right? And we're just like, Then we get to this point and we realize, as I'd shared before, that we've grown so much that we're like, wow, that's their stuff. And then we get to a point where we're like, wow, actually we either, as I said, we stay there and we're like, accept them and this is how it is and we just live like this. Or we're like, actually, no, this isn't what I want for me, my life, and my children. I actually want a conscious relationship. And so then we step away and work on the grief and work on that totally sets us free. Yeah. So Leah says, may I just add that I was so scared to leave, but I felt like I was suffocating. So I tried to take my own life. When I got away, life improved almost instantly. Honestly, it is like instant relief. And this is why I shared in that article yesterday, what happens when you cut and leave unhealthy and toxic relationships. Like I said, if you haven't read that, please comment in and let me know you'd like to read it, and I'll send you the link, because understanding that is so important. Because we're in the trauma, we're in the drama, we're in the like, it's so full on, and then we leave and we're like, oh, it's peace. Oh my God, that's what I mean. It's like a breath of fresh air. But after a while, like all the neural pathways, the chemicals that have been running through in that trauma and stuff, it's like we have withdrawals from it. And that's another big factor of why we go back to it. Yeah. And so this is so important understanding, because as you said, Leah, like you felt that low and suffocating, you try to take your own life because you had to get out. And it's like they're just like pulling at your soul, like, you know, and so they're connecting through you. It literally like sucks the life out of you. Like there's nothing there. And because we carry them so much energetically in that space, that's why we feel like that. So a lot of people leave the planet because of that. Yeah. So yeah, 3 years out, my life, my children's have never been better. Exactly right. Yes, and Nicola says, same, feeling liberated since made the decision to leave them. First relationship lasted 10 years, second ex 18 years. Single mom now and healing fabulously. You've regained your own power. Yes, celebrating that so much. So yes, and we definitely go back because of that brain chemicals. We definitely go back because we haven't dealt with our past and where that stems from, okay? And the biggest realization that you can also have is just when you understand and realize certain traits about what you're attracted to, about how it makes you feel. If you think back to, did I have a family member growing up that made me feel the same way? Did I have a family, you know, like, is my partner in front of me or the person in front of me, do they remind me of anyone in my family who I experienced growing up? There might be similar traits. And then you're like, oh, that's where it stems from. So when you work on things, if you work on healing your inner child and work through that, that's going to shift a lot, and it actually helps you release this. Yeah, the current one a lot easier. So yeah, it's so strong. Yeah. Okay, let me just check these comments here. Sorry, mate, it's okay to grieve your dream. Yes, exactly that, right? It's definitely okay to grieve your dream, because when we do, it creates space for the reality of that to come in, not just the dream and fantasy, yeah? Yes, Leah says, my dad and my ex are very much the same. Yeah, it's kind of confronting reality to like realize that stuff, right? It's like, oh, that's a confrontational reality. At the same time, we're like, oh my God, yeah, it's full on. That's full on. We're like, I don't know about that. Like, what do we do with that? That's where the inner child work, that's where all of that comes in. Yeah. All right, let me check these pieces here. Okay, so, okay. Does it hold you back from the fulfillment of your life purpose? In answer, yes, it does. Leah says I had to cut both off. Yeah, and we do. And I just want to point out too, in, you know, whether we cut them off for life or we cut them off for a period of time, that's completely your decision, completely. There's no right or wrong. Like, this is nothing. It needs to feel right for you. So when I, you know, worked through my stuff, like, I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then we had more contact and I was like, actually, no, it's not fine. And, you know, kind of go through that a little bit. And I was like, you know what, it's better just none. With family, in myself, I've been able to deal with it because in my head, it's not forever. I just need space and time away so that I can heal, so that I can get my connection and get, you know, everything solid in myself and my life, and then enter back in, and I'm in a different place. I can stay connected. I can handle things better, so to speak, and be able to hold space in that reality, being able to, you know, deal with anything, right? Of course, again, not accepting abuse, not tolerating all of that. Like, there's boundaries, okay? Of course, yeah? But in myself, it was easier to let go and to cut off because I knew it's just for a period of time. Now, that period of time could be a couple of months. That period of time could be a couple of years. Only you will know what feels right for you, but it's so important to allow yourself to just have that time. And in that can also then bring up all the abandonment, can bring up all that feeling alone. It can, you know, it can bring up more, but then we get to heal deeper and be able to solidify our core deeper, especially when we cut family. Like, there's something that really big that happens in that space around, we grow up. Yeah, our inner child grows up. We grow up. We're able to stabilize our reality. We become our own parent rather than, you know, having surrogate parents, which are our intimate relationships, which those confronting realities come in, and like, oh, my dad and my ex are very much the same, or oh, why is this like boss the same as my mother or grandmother or auntie or whatever it is, like, it's like same sort of thing, right? And so, you know, as I always say, you will only know if you have to leave a relationship and heal. So when you ask that question, do I stay or do I go, right? When I work with clients, it's like, what I recommend is, if you're in a situation and it's safe, stay for now. Do all this inner work, right? And there's so many different aspects and, you know, things you can go through, okay? And Unhook Me is perfect for that. Go through and do lots of inner work. I say, you know, pick a time frame, 10 days, 21 days, 30 days, 6 months, choose what's right for you. Do all this inner work, okay? After that time, you will know whether to stay or leave. Now, you might probably know before then, for sure, right? You might get to like halfway through and you're like, nah, I still need to leave, okay? But the thing is that then you can leave and you know that you have done all you can before you made that decision. Instead of leaving and then doing all this work and you're like, oh, it was me. And that's when we go back and we're like, ah. So if you do the work while you're there, then you can leave with no regrets. Then you can leave with knowing that you've done everything possible, and it's easier to stay away in that sense, right? So, as well as grieving, yeah. So that, you know, stay or leave, do I stay or leave? Yeah, it comes down to, again, only you know that decision. And as I always say, as long as you're safe, yeah, do the work. If you're not safe, get out. Your physical safety is high priority, obviously emotional safety too. But, you know, it's a big deal to leave, right? So if you can do that work, and obviously, like I said, this is what I do working with my clients. So if you need that one-on-one support, I'm here, right? Sort of worked with many, many clients over and over with this sort of situation to be able to do the specific work to be able to know whether to stay or leave. And, you know, and like I said, most of them are like, no, I still need to leave, or I still, actually, no, I'm so glad I did this work because like I love them to bits. And look what we just worked through. We worked through one of the hardest things, and the old me would have walked away and then regretted it. Yeah. So important. Joy says, I love your perspective on how this period can be a couple of years while we heal, so it makes it easier to deal with the situation as difficult as it is. Yeah, you want to really allow yourself 18 months to really solidify solid change, to really solidify solid healing. Now, when I say 18 months, doesn't mean that you'll be crying every day, and sometimes that is the case though, right? But sometimes that, you know, allowing yourself to that time to heal, yeah, it's like you kind of get on with life and then it hits you again. When you can just know in yourself that 18 months, especially when you first separate or you first realize and you're not sure if you need to stay or leave, right? Again, only you'll know the time frame, but at the same time, that 18 months is like a definite healing cycle. I've seen it time and time again with my clients. It's really, really profound in being able to know that there is a grief period of time, and if you're not allowing yourself, you're just going to stay stuck. Yeah. And also knowing that time frame is like, there's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you, right? It takes time to heal, especially when you've been with them for like a good like century, decade. Yeah. So Gemma says, I know that my father is a covert narcissist. I know after a lifetime of manipulation, it's unhealthy, but I also feel it's my place to help break this generational cycle. Yeah, exactly, right? And, you know, whether we're still in contact with them or not, we can still heal those generational cycles. So if you're aware of it, you're usually healing the cycle and breaking the cycle. So it's so freaking awesome. Joy says, I'm at a year now. Yeah, it takes time. It's not easy. And that's why, yeah, I need to be around people who get it, which is here. That's why you're here. One reason why you're here. So Reality Awareness Support Group on Facebook. If you're not in there, you can type it into the Facebook search bar, Reality Awareness Support Group, and it'll come up. There's many of us in there and we all get it. So we're all sensitive empaths and we're all working on our intuitive abilities, because the other factor is, you know how there was a couple on you who said here, when I left them, I felt instantly better, right? And I know I've explained why that happens, right? Is because like they're not sucking through us anymore, okay? Now, by the way, that can still happen if you're not in relationship with them. And this is why Unhook Me is awesome for really clearing all of that. So the other piece there, what was I just saying there? So when we walk away from them, everything gets amazing again, right? Number one, because we've listened to our intuition. Number two is they're not sucking through us and pulling our light, which is our intuition in a way, yeah? Number three is because our intuition suddenly is reconnected, our life purpose, our creativity, everything comes back. Everything comes back, right? And so our life purpose becomes clear. Everything, like we're like back in flow and we're back in that state, yeah? So the reason that we, you know, when we leave them and we feel better is coming into that place of that ultimate connection. And in that ultimate connection, our life purpose opens up, things become clear, yeah? It does take time to heal though, and that's the thing, you must remember, it does take time. So yeah. Yes, love that community. Yes, this community. Yeah, I love it too. I'm so grateful that you're here, because it wouldn't be without you all. And I'm so, so grateful that you're here. All right, so I'm going to ask if anybody's got any questions specifically around anything that I asked. Just checking that I that I spoke to everything that I wanted to speak to. Yeah. I could talk about this for ages with lots of different avenues and aspects, but I'm going to leave it there. And just see if anybody's got any specific questions around the narcissistic relationship or themselves or any other sort of healing tools. But Unhook Me is where you can find all those healing tools, and you also get access to the Facebook group that we're all working through that. It is like, there's some really deep energetic processes in there that really get into the core you know, the core sense of the shifts that you really work through there. Really working on that deep level. So yeah. Yes, so mindset reset is different. So I'm talking about unhook me here with the narcissistic ex holding you back from your life purpose? Specifically because unhook me is those processes specifically around that. Mindset reset would be like to kind of get your mindset back on track, set up that sacred space, the rituals. And yeah, we do start that in 2 weeks at the time of this recording. So yes. Yeah, thank you, Gemma. It's been super lovely having you here. And he says, my son woke up and I missed a lot. Yes, the replay will definitely be available. As soon as I jump off, you'll be able to watch the replay. So yeah. Yes. All right. A blessing. Yes. Thank you, Gemma. Leah says, I'm just looking back and thinking about how I was trying to heal whilst I was in this toxic relationship. I cannot explain how I felt. I know, right? And it's also the thing, you know, I always talk about, and I talk about this a lot in the third eye chakra, because when we grow, awaken, you know, enhance our spiritual development, all of that, as I always say, like in relationship, you met because it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Your energy just like, you know, it's like a beacon or whatever, like a magnetic, it's like, oh, there it is, locked into place. There's that soul connection. Like you're there. Yeah. And so when one person grows and the other doesn't, this happens. And then this person can be like, oh, what's happened? Like, you know, the power source, right? The connecting through you've raised your vibration, so to speak, and they're like trying to look for it, and they're like, and they're trying to like pull you down because they're like, oh, cool, right? And this is why when I ask you that question, is your narcissistic ex holding you back from the fulfillment and acceleration of your life purpose? Why? Because yeah, you're like, yeah, cool, and then all of a sudden all this happens because that's you're gone, and this happens so subtly and so subconsciously. And like they're trying to like, where are you? Where have you gone? You know, like subconsciously. And so they do all those things to pull you back. And you're like, oh, but you haven't really left anyway. You know, you're still there. But that's really what happens. And unless they're doing the work, or they don't have to do the work, but they have to be supporting you and they have to raise with you and not be scared of that, right? And it's a tricky one in today's society. There are people who do it though. And so this, as you keep rising, that person can. This is what I say, 2 people can. Yeah? But a lot of the time, it doesn't happen. And so the attacking comes from the like trying to pull back down. So it's like, oh, there it is. You know? Yeah. Yes, you did do Unhook Me, Joy. You're so good. So powerful. Super crazy. It is. You're so welcome. Leah says he's not spiritual at all. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And this is where I was saying, like, there are women that I know who are super conscious, but with unconscious men, okay? And I'm not saying it, again, as a judgmental thing. It's just a way of explaining things on here. And, you know, and they live a happy life, like, you know, because they fully accept each other and they meet each other. And this is a healthy relationship, because she's super conscious, he's not, for example, but he accepts her and he accepts her in her growth. Now, that wasn't always the way, right? It's kind of like one starts growing and then there's always going to be tension, and like there's always stuff in relationships. Can you work through it respectfully, consciously, like, you know what I mean? And come to that agreement with each other. Yeah, it is possible, but it just depends on the person. It depends also, what do you want in relationship? Do you want an unconscious person, or do you want a conscious relationship? And again, it's not that any's good or bad. It depends. Like, is there respect? Is there communication? Is there support? Is there supporting each other? Like all of that. Yeah, and I know you know that. So yes. you're so welcome. So if this resonates with you and you know that this can help somebody, please share it, or you can send it to them in a private message, or you can comment their name in and tag them, and I shall see you all so soon. Thank you so much for being here. It was really, really lovely to connect with you and to share these powerful realizations, because they are so huge, and I think there is such a stigma out there that we're not allowed to love them. And it's like, it cripples our healing. It cripples being able to let go, right? It's okay to love them, or you wouldn't have been with them in the first place. There is some sort of connection and attraction there. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that, yeah? So thank you, Hannah. I love this tonight. The narcs will never change. Better off without them, in my personal opinion. They think they are superior to everyone. Yeah. And so I just want to say that too. And I meant to say that, you know, when we get to see there's so much depth to this, we need to kind of just tapped on the surface of this here. So when we do separate out of a narc relationship, it's really important that through shadow integration, we also integrate the narcissist that we have inside of us. There is a reflection of that. Now, some people wouldn't agree with that, but if we look at, say, an archetypal reality, it's a reality, yeah? And so when we really do that inner work and we work on childhood trauma and blah, 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 and past lives and all that depth, then we also look at integrating the narcissist within us. I think my cat's trying to find a box. So we integrate that reflection, and that takes the healing to the next level. That's when we're really set free, yeah? The other thing I meant to say too, when we cut cords, right, we can definitely cut cords, and sometimes we definitely need to. Sometimes the grief and grieving that we go through releases the cord in itself, because there's a reason the cord's there, because we actually don't want to let go because we freaking love them, right? It's one little aspect of it. So when we grieve, that cord naturally releases as well. Yeah, it's big, it's big, it's big. Yes, but yes, most narcs, I want to say, won't wake up. That's not true, and I don't like that, because ultimately there's a possibility for everyone to wake up. But if we're waiting around for it, I'd be questioning that, especially if they're not doing work. But it does take men longer to catch up, but at the same time, what do you want in your life? Yeah. Leah says, so true. I don't feel like I could ever be with someone, again, that's unconscious. It's just a different kind of connection. It is. And I think, you know, like I said, we get to a certain point where I actually really want this. I really want a conscious relationship. And that's what we wait for and align to and continue to do the work to until, yeah. Now to get rid of these fleas. What is that for? Is that for my cats hearing? I do flee them. You want peace. Yeah. So the peace, you know, the peace does come, but it also sometimes doesn't come. And, you know, and that's where we really create that internal peace. We create the internal peace. And that comes through that solid connection to ourselves, sorting out our life, sorting every aspect of our life out, doing that deep inner work on so many different levels. Yeah. And it is choosing the peace too. To be like that article that I wrote yesterday, or shared again yesterday. We can have the peace, but then the brain neural chemical pathways, the addiction, craves that stimulation, that level of stimulation. So it's a big brain rewire. And that's why the mindset's really important. It's important to do the training, the trauma healing and all that spiritual work. Like, yes, but then we also need the mindset. And that's what Mindset Reset is about too. That's the 2-week immersion coming up. Sorry, you might have seen that. It was just released today or yesterday. So yeah, it is both. It's definitely both. And one's more called for at a particular time, depending on where you're at with what you're healing as well, for sure. And that's why everybody's different. Yeah. So Joy says, I want a compassionate, empathetic partner. They're not capable. Yeah. That's the thing. And so we also need to become that ourselves as well. So when we're looking at, you know, what we're wanting in relationship, it's also what we're needing to stabilize within our own life too. Yeah. So anything that you're desiring, it's like, yeah, How do I stabilize that in my own life too? Yeah, super important. So Joy says, yes, I'm coming to a place of peace alone. Yes, still have off days with shadow work, but yeah, of course we have off days, especially when you're still fresh into it. It's definitely not easy for sure. All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I love you all. Love you and leave you. I shall see you soon. Bye.